All right. This episode is brought to you by the project on the mezzanine that is getting done right now. And Jared, this is how you bring up a picture.
This is Bible Time, episode 14. We're going to finish Paul's prayer for Timothy today, and we're going to finish not one, but two verses 4 and 5. So let's not waste any time. Let's get started. Last episode, we saw Paul's thankfulness, and we looked at his thankfulness within the context of him, one, being in jail, but also two, in that larger Daniel 7 vision context. And as Paul's thankfulness continues, what we'll see is that his thankfulness focuses down to one individual and upon one individual, namely Timothy. And one thing that I want to focus on in this section is how encouraging and how loving Paul is towards Timothy. You know, we've seen Paul quite a bit as this kind of fiery and this impassioned missionary. We've seen him tear his robes and cry out against the city of Lystra's idolatry in Acts 14. We've seen him stand on Mars Hill and call the Epicureans foolish, unintellectuals in Acts 17. And if we read his letters, he openly rebukes churches for abandoning the gospel, like in Galatians chapter 1. And, you know, does Paul have a passion for the truth that runs deep? Absolutely. But his passion for people runs just as deep. And that's why he says to Timothy, longing to see you. It's that Paul has such a great love for Timothy, that there's this deep desire, that there is this need to see him again. And as Paul is in a jail cell, and as time is running out, and as Timothy is running through his mind, look at what Paul remembers. Even as I recall your tears. He thinks about the last time that they said goodbye. And maybe in that goodbye, they wondered if that would be their last goodbye. Maybe Timothy thought this would be his final moment with Paul, his father in the faith, hence the tears. Hence the tears. And, you know, you see such a big part of Paul's heart here because of all the things that are important to him, of all the things that he treasures, people and this relationship occupies such a large part of his heart. And what an important reminder that is for us, that we place the right kind of value and the right kind of treasure, the time that we have with our family and our loved ones, that's what we treasure and that's what we value, that time is a gift from the Lord and we cannot afford to forget that. And look at why Paul needs to see Timothy one last time, so that I may be filled with joy. So that I may be filled with joy. And you might be surprised to know that this phrase here, be filled with joy, is pretty rare. It really only occurs in places like Philippians 2, verse 2. And in Philippians 2:2, Paul is asking that church to be of the same mind, to be united, to share the same kind of love for one another, and to strive towards the same goal. Paul tells the Philippians, if you accomplish that kind of unity, of the unity of love, striving towards the same goal, being of the same mind, then you've accomplished something beautiful. Hence you would fulfill my joy. But that which Paul commanded the church in Philippi to accomplish, Timothy has already accomplished that in his life. Timothy had ingrained the right kinds of things in his soul. He didn't do things out of selfishness. He didn't do things out of pride. He was marked by humility, and he regarded others as more important than himself. And so when Paul is explaining why he's so thankful to Timothy, it's because Timothy has become the man that he always knew he would become. And so, of course, seeing Timothy one last time would fulfill Paul's joy. And well, as Paul's thankfulness continues, he explains why he feels the way he feels in verse 5. And so let's look at verse 5 together. He says, for I am mindful of the sincere faith within you, which first dwelt in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I am sure that it is in you as well. Paul says, Timothy, what makes you so unique and what makes you so cherished is that there is this sincere faith this sincere faith, that there's no hypocrisy, that you don't put on a show, you don't pretend to be someone you're not whenever everyone's looking. Your life as a Christian is marked by maturity. And that this sincerity, this maturity, this authenticity, it began with your grandmother. And here is your grandmother. And she's a grandmother, so we'll give her a cane. And that your grandmother passed it down here. She's got to be smiling, okay? And that your grandmother passed it down to your mother. And that not just your grandmother was faithful, not just your mother was faithful, but she then was faithful to pass that down now to you, Timothy, okay? And now you know what your job is, that you must pass that down now to the next person, to the next generation. Paul says, Timothy, you can't just receive from here. You can't just receive from here, but now you also need to give. And now you also need to prepare and hand down the truth for the next generation. And I hope we capture here how encouraging Paul is for Timothy. This should really challenge us to find and to seize moments where we can be encouraging to others. And if watching the news these past few weeks have shown us anything, it's that we live in a pretty, negative world. And even within the church, we can find ourselves tearing people down. We can find ourselves, criticizing others in hurtful ways. And we would just do so well to learn this lesson from Paul and to be people that are encouraging and that are edifying. And there's a story, and one of my old professors was talking about Barnabas in the Bible. And here is Barnabas. And Barnabas' name means son of encouragement. And we're such a fitting name for Barnabas because he was an encouraging guy. And one of my professors said, can you imagine if everybody in the church was a Barnabas and was marked by that same kind of encouragement and was marked by encouraging others just constantly, and how true that would be if we all were marked by these things.
All right. Hello, everybody. It is episode 14, and we're going to change things up a little bit. There are no questions today. I know. I'm sorry. It's kind of sad. Instead, we have replaced it with Challenge Day. And Challenge Day is to do something challenging. Actually, it's not that challenging. It's just something good that you should do. All right, so as we're thinking about Paul encouraging Timothy and how encouraged Paul was by Timothy, I want you to think of something encouraging that you can do. Maybe it's calling somebody, maybe it's writing a note, maybe it's doing an extra chore around your house. I don't want you to say it out loud right now. I just want you to think of it, maybe write it down, and do it. Do it today. Do it tomorrow. Don't waste time. Just bam, do it. But make it a surprise. I mean, if you just literally go into the kitchen right now and do dishes, it's going to be like, well, Tommy told you to do that. It's not like it actually is that great. All right. So I want you to do that for somebody in your family and somebody outside your family. So maybe it's a friend you haven't seen in a while. But yeah, that's it. All right. We will see you guys back tomorrow for episode 15.